Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. So today I will be doing another question named Arbor. Arbor. Right, Arbor. Question number 43 from Kaplan. Right, so let's go. So we can do this thing independently as well, right? So the first question talks about explain the different methods of dealing with capital rationing problem in circumstances where capital is rationed in a single period, right? So for that we can just use a profitability index, right, for a single period. For a multi-period we will need to do some calculation, right? So we need to define some constraints as well, along with the objective function. Okay, so that's for 5 marks, right? So we'll talk about it. This is just basic theory, right? Let's see at the question number B as well. What does it say? And then we'll answer the question. Yeah, don't worry, we've got plenty of time. Arbor company is a large listed company, okay, which has many autonomous departments operating in as investment centers. Okay, so it has investment limits for each department based on 3-year cycle. 3-year cycle. Projects selected by the department would have to fall within the investment limits set for each of the 3-year. All departments would be required to maintain a capital investment monitoring system. Okay, capital investment monitoring system. Okay, and report on their findings annually to Arbor company's BOD. So Durbo department is considering the following 5 investment projects with 3 year of initial investment expenditure. So 3 year of initial investment expenditure followed by several years of positive cash inflows, right? So the department initial investment expenditure are this much, this much, this much for year 1, 2, 3 respectively. None of the above projects can be deferred, and all projects can be scaled down but not scaled up. Okay, it can be scaled down but not scaled up. Okay, so it can't be, basically it can't be more than two projects can be done. That's what it basically means, right? So okay, what else? What else? Not scaled up, right? Okay, project 5, duration 5, right? So this project, this particular thing in question, P duration 05 project annual operating cash flow commences at the end of year 4. Okay, it basically commences at the end of year 4 and lasts for a period of 15 years. Okay, so we might have to discount that, right? We have to find it out. Not so easy. Okay, we know that already, right, in our back of my mind. The project generates annual sales of 300,000 units at a selling price of 14 and incurs a relevant cost of this much, right? Okay, annually. Although the cost and unit sold can be predicted with a fair degree of certainty, there is a considerable uncertainty about the unit selling price. So the department uses a required rate of return of 11% for the project. Okay, and inflation can be ignored. Okay, easy then. So you see, all of these are, we've got the NPV, right? But for project 5, we don't have the NPV, right? We need to calculate it, not to worry. The Durbo department managing director is of the opinion that all projects which return a positive NPV should be accepted and does not understand the reasons why Arbor imposes capital rationing. Okay, who is this? Managing director. Furthermore, she is not sure why maintaining a capital investment monitoring system would be beneficial to the company. Okay, so what are we supposed to do? Calculate the NPV of the project, P duration 5, right? And then calculate and comment on what percentage fall in the selling price would need to occur before the net present value falls to 0. So we need to do a bit of sensitivity analysis, right? So formulate a appropriate capital rationing model based on the above investment limits and then maximizes the NPV for the department Durvo. Finding a solution for the model is not required. So we just need to find the equation only. 3 marks. That's easy. Okay, that's easy, right? For C number, right, we have, what is this? We need to make some assumptions, right? So all these things are there, right? So we need to explain them, explain the figures produced in each of these. So we'll come to it. So we've got the total final value, category 1, category 2 is adjustable final values, category 3 is constant utilized, and then slack is also there, right? So we need to explain this. That's for 5 marks. Number D is provide a brief response to the managing director's opinion, right? So you remember how, like, why they want to impose capital rationing, that's for 2 marks, right? It's not there is no plenty of resources, of course, right? What is the features of capital investment monitoring system? Features and discussing the benefits. So features and benefits, so there is 2 marks for it, right? Okay, it's a bit of a thing, but yeah, okay, let's go for it. Single and this thing, right? So of course they will be basically, okay, what am I doing? Why is this thing not opening? Okay, Arbor, right? So this question shows how important it is to revise the whole syllabus in preparation for the exam, right? So capital rationing is a small topic. It is a what? Small topic in the syllabus, but it is tested in detail here. You are never you will never be expected to solve capital rationing linear programming model, but it is important that you are able to interpret the results. Okay. So in the first case, explain the different methods of dealing with circumstances where capital rationing is done in a single period, right? So shareholder wealth. Shareholder wealth is maximized if a company undertakes all possible positive NPVs, right? So capital rationing is where there is on insufficient funds, is where there are insufficient funds to do so, right? Every project, the shortage of fund may be for a single period or for a more than one period. A single period capital rationing problem is solved by ranking competing projects according to profitability index. So that is basically NPV divided by the capital investment needed, right? So the initial investment, this is the formula, okay, needed in the restrictive period. So the limited amount of capital available is then allocated to the project with the highest profitability index, in order to generate the highest NPV per unit of the investment, right? A solution to a multi-rationing period cannot be found using profitability indices. So this method can only deal with one limiting factor, and that is one period of shortage, right? Where there is number of limiting factors or number of periods of shortages, a linear model has to be formulated. The solution to a linear model will give the combination of projects to maximize NPV generated, right? So this is all we need to explain basically. 5 marks, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basically. You can give 5, 6 points. Yeah, 5 points should be enough. Okay, regarding this thing, so we need to find the present value of it, right? So let's just multiply sales unit times the value, and then it begins at what? End of year 4, year 5, right? End of year 4 lasts for a period of 15 years. So it lasts for a period of 15 years. How are you going to discount it? Lasts for a period of 15 years. So 4 to 19, isn't it? 4 to 19, I guess so. So 300,000 times 14, and then you deduct the cost, then you get your annual cash flow, and then we discount it. First of all, the whole cash flow present value will be what is this value? Year 1 immediately, right? What is this investment required, right? So in the first year, the investment required is that much, right? First year is that much. We discount it, and then we discount it using 11%, right? 11%, and then we discount the 970 as well. 1, 2, 3 at the year 4. End of year 4, 970 times your annuity factor, 11%, I think, at 15 years. 11% at 15 years, that's what it must be. Let me just check. Yeah, it's for 15 years. Yeah, and then after that, what I wanted to tell you about is like this is positive. These things are investment. This is our NPV 313. You see, it's not supposed to be parentheses. It's a print mistake, right? And then in order for the NPV to fall to nil, right, we need to calculate that how much would the selling price would need to fall by, right? So we'll need to compute that as well. So for that reason, what we need the total investment, right? So it's 4717, right? So that's the initial investment, right? That's the initial investment or present value of the sum of present value of the investment, right? And then investment divide by this value. Okay, so the cash flow would have to reduce by this much, 89110. Okay, okay, so what would happen? The annual cash flow will need to reduce by that much, discounted at present value, right, in order for it to fail. Reduce to 4717. Will need to equal to this amount plus this amount plus this amount, right? We won't be discounting that because it's the 1 year, which is immediately, right? That's why it will have to fall to that amount. So we divide that with how much? We divide that with in perpetuity times your discount rate, right? Times your discount rate. So that will bring us to this amount, 8917. So our cost will have to increase to how much? The sales revenue will have to reduce to this much, 4127110. So then divide by 300,000. We are actually working out backwards. Okay, we are working backwards. You see, what would happen is basically what would happen is, I'll show it to you. So right now we have this much cash flow, right? All this cash flow is there, right? And then what's the remaining cash flow that's remaining? It's 5100, right? And then the amount that we need for the NPV to be zero, or our what did we say, our NPV value to fall to zero. You see, it falls to zero, right? What would need to happen? Our cash inflows should be equal to our investment, isn't it? So how would you do that? You would work it out backward. Okay, backward. So our total investment is how much? 4717. If we add this figure, first year investment, second year investment, third year investment, right? In present value terms. Okay, in present value terms, it would need to fall to this much in present value terms. So how much would the annual cash flow need to reduce to? How much? This amount, right? But in today's term, how much should it basically reduce to, right? We need to compute that. The annual cash flow will need to reduce to 8917110 instead of how much? Instead of 970,000. Okay, instead of 970,000, it would need to reduce to this much in today's term. Right, it will need to reduce to that much. And then after that, what we do, it would need to reduce to that much. That means when will we be breaking even? It's basically when the sales revenue would reduce to the cost plus the margin, right? So that's the margin, isn't it? That's the margin. So the cost would need to also increase by this much, so that our revenue will need to be how much? 4127110, and then minus the cost, the initial projected cost, and then additional cost that it would need to increase. The cost would need to increase by this much, right? Or let's just say the selling price, right? The selling price will need to decrease. Let's just say that. So the selling price will need to decrease by how much? The selling price will need to decrease by would fall to this much. So what can we do when you have the sales revenue will fall to this much? Then what would happen? So earlier, let's just think about it this way as well. What was the revenue in the beginning? In the beginning, the revenue was what? 300,000 into 14. 300,000 into 14. So 4, 3, 12, all this figure, right? So 12, and then what is this? 300 into 14. 42. How the hell did we get 42? 14, nah? 300,000 into 14. Right, 42 million, right? 4.2 million. And then after that, what do we need to have? What do we need to have? Is basically it's fallen down to that much, right? It's fallen down to that much. Let's just say the price is 14, right? So the annual cash flow has to, we need to increase it. Or let's just say the sales revenue has to be increased by how much? We're just working backward. You see, in this case, we are just subtracting this thing, and then we are getting this annual cash flow, right? Again, what are we doing over here? We are just adding it back. We are just adding the annual cash flow will reduce to this much, and then we are just adding it back. We reached over here, and now what we do? We divide this value by the total units, and then we get our reduced price, right? In this price, what would happen? The price will have to fall by 1.7% for the value to for the NPV to be 0, right? The estimate of the cash flow will differ if the tables are used rather than calculator. Okay, this is acceptable, and it will be allowed for when marking, right? The NPV is very sensitive to the changes, and then the selling price of the product. A small fall in the product would make the NPV to nil, so making the project not worthwhile. Okay, it's not worthwhile. All right, so just read through it. In this thing, I think you might be confused over here mostly, right? Even anyone can miss it, right? It's very it can be very confusing right over there. But what you can do is just use your logic up a little bit, right? Just a little bit, and then it should help you out. Right. Right, you see over here as well, why are we dividing? You see over here we are multiplying, right? We are dividing that, so that just means that we are just multiplying it as well. You can just say that way, right? So you see in this thing we are multiplying it, right? Just think of it from this term as well. We are multiplying over here. Why are we dividing over here? You see the difference. You will see it. Okay, so what's the number 2? Formulate appropriate capital rationing model based on the above investment limits. Okay, so we've got some constraints over here, right? So for that, what we can do is we need to find the z as like constraints for each year, right? So it will be 464 y1 plus, like, objective function will be maximizing all this value, right? In order to do that, we just put in the value, and then we define the unknown variables first of all, right? We could say a, b, c, d, e, and then 464 times a plus 464 244 times y2. You can just define it as y2 as well, and then use the value. In the last year we used the same value. Where is that? 383. Yeah, we use this value. Yeah, and then we basically now we create a equation for it. So in the first year we just add in all the present value. We add in all the cash flow of it, cash flow, outflow, inflow, whatever, right? So it will be inflow of outflow of everything is outflow. It's outflow of all this thing, and then it should be less than 9,000, right? In the second year it should be 6,000. It should be 5,000. So it's going this way. And then where y1, y2, y4, y0 is greater than 0. Always define this as well. People don't define it, but yeah, it should be greater than 0. It'll be defined in the constraints section. Okay, you don't need to solve the equation, so that's pretty much it. For 3 marks, that's pretty much done. So 1 marks for the assumption, I guess, 2 marks for this, 3 marks for this. Okay, category. What does it say? Total final value, category 1. So output when the capital rationing model in part B above is solved, we get a total final value of this much, and adjustable final values is all this thing. Okay, so it's saying that category 3 constraint utilized is everything is utilized, there is no slack, so that means everything has been utilized, right? In category 1, explain the figures produced in the 3 output variables. Category 1, right? Total final value. So the final maximum net present value that can be earned within the 3-year constraint of capital expenditure by undertaking whole or part or none of the 5 projects. This amount is less than the total present value of all 5 projects if there were no constraints, right? It is always less than the total present value if there were no constraints. Okay, if there were no constraints, we would have had the chance to take all of them, right? So it would be basically since we have a constraint, it will always be less than the total present value, right? So it's only how much, 1.1 million, something like that, right? You see how much present value we've got. 4 2 6 plus 3 plus 3, right? So 6 4 10 12 already over there, right? So it's greater, it's smaller than that. So category 2, what does this mean? These mean that how much proportion of the projects that can be undertaken. Okay, so it just means that. So in case of let's say in case of project number 1, 95.8% of the project can be undertaken, right? So it will depend. Sometimes they will be given a question where like you can't divide the project. Okay, you can't do like I'll do half project of that and all, right? So it can't be happening. Okay, and then after that category 3 is constraint utilized is the slack, right? Constraint utilized slack, right? So this indicates to what extent the constraint limits has been utilized and whether any investment funds is remain unused, which is the slack. Okay, the figure indicate that in order to achieve maximum net present value, all the funds in the 3 years are used up and no funds remain unused. Okay, so that's all these figures basically mean. Very simple, right? Very easy. If you've got doubts, do comment down below. I'll be happy to explain. Okay, what is this? Explain why Arbor may want to impose capital rationing on its department. Okay, so let's go for it. So normally, positive NPV projects should be accepted as they add value to the value of the company by generating returns in excess of the required rate of return, right? By generating returns in excess of rate of return. If you don't understand this, comment down below, I'll definitely help you out. But it just means that it is producing whatever your rate of return is, it is producing over it. That's what it basically means. Okay, so that's what it basically means. So let's say you've got a cash flow of 100 and then you've got a value which is like what, minus, and then let's say 110, right? So this is, let's say the discounting factor is 0.909, right? So in this case minus 100, and then how much will that be? 90 plus 9, I think 99. 110 into 9, 110 into 0.909, right? 99.9. So that's not enough, so we might have to produce this much. So 120 into 0.909. I'm not sure if that is 1 divided by 1.1. I'm just using that. 9.909. 120 into 0.909. So what's that? 109.8. 109.8. So what does this mean? What does this 9.8 mean? It means that we are producing 9.8 amount greater than 10% required rate of return. Okay, that's what it basically means. The rate of return is 9.8% greater than our required rate of return. It is x plus 9.8. Okay, so x is being like how much you are investing in the bank, and then you will be just getting 10% on it, right? So it's greater than that. Okay, it's just greater than that. That's what it basically means. Okay, net present value means that if we were to understand it, This is what it is. Right, what I'm trying to say is that, let's say you put the money in the bank, right? You put the money in the bank, you get only 110, right? 10%. So you're discounting that at 10%, so you'll be getting what, 100 back, right? So what's the NPV? Zero, right? So is it any fruitful? This thing is better, or like this thing where the high cash flow is higher and it's a project, rather than investing in the bank, you're getting what? You're getting 110, right? You're getting 110, so you're getting 10 excess on it, right? So you're getting 10 more than the previous project, isn't it? That's what it basically means, huh? NPV, that's what it basically means. If you don't understand, do comment down below. I'll definitely try to explain it to you. Okay. So however, in this case, Arbor seems to be employing soft capital rationing by setting internal limits. You see, even I had forgotten about this point, but yeah, it's reminded me. Capital rationing, soft capital rationing, okay? It's soft, not hard. Hard is basically from external sources, okay? So soft is internal limit. So the capital available for each department, possibly due to capital budget limits placed by the company on the amounts it wants to borrow or can borrow. It does not want to borrow, that's why it wants to basically put an internal limit. In the latter case, the company faces limited access to the capital from external sources. For example, because of restriction in bank lending, costs related to the issue of new capital, lending to the company being perceived as too risky. This is known as hard capital rationing, okay? So this is known as hard capital rationing. When there is restrictions in bank lending, or when the cost of new issue is high, and then when the lending is perceived as too risky, that's why the cost is higher for the company, okay? That's why they don't want to borrow. So they will place that's a hard capital rationing, okay? In terms of soft capital rationing, it's basically you're placing a internal limit on capital available to each department, okay? So explain the features of capital investment monitoring system, right? So CIMS, capital investment monitoring system. So it monitors how an investment is progressing once it has been implemented. It basically tracking the progress, right? Otherwise, if you are not supervising the project, it's going to be very hard to succeed it, right? So you won't make money out of it otherwise. Initially, the CIMS will be set up with a budget and a plan of how the project is going to proceed. It sets milestone for what needs to be achieved and by when, and then it considers all the possible risks, both internal and external, which may affect the project. CIMS thus then ensures that project is progressing according to the plan and budget. That's the main objective of it. It will identify all the risks and then try to mitigate it, transfer it, whatever the framework is, right, based on their consequences and all, right? The benefit to Arbor of CIMS, we need to explain that as well. Yeah, the benefits of it, right? So that's the second part. You see how they have explained. So I guess it's 2 marks and then 2 marks for this. I guess so. Are that it tries to ensure as much possible that the project meets what is expected of it in terms of revenue and expenses. Also, the project is completed on time and the risk factors are identified, remain valid. Critical path of linked activities. Critical path, it's always what they are talking about is like you've got this Gantt chart that we normally say. Like some projects, like this is like, let's say, the roofing, right? The roofing can't be done without laying the foundation, right? Foundation. So basically the foundation can't be done without doing the underground kind of work, right? So some activities are linked together, right? So this activity can't basically be done without doing the foundation, right? So that's why they have a path, okay? The project has a path as well. So they are just talking about that. The critical path of the linked activities which make up the project will be identified, right? So they will be identified and how they can be done, okay? How it can be dealt with. So the project will be proactive rather than reactive towards the management of risks, right? And then therefore possibly be able to reduce cost. by having a better plan. If you have a proactive plan, you will make less mistake, which in turn will be less costly for you. Okay. So CIMS can be used as a communication device between managers charged with managing the project and monitoring team. Okay. So project manager is there, one guy, right? And then there is another guy, another team of people, right? What is this? This is a monitoring team is there, right? So this acts as a communication between them. Okay. So finally, CIMS will be able to reassess and change the assumption made of the project if changes in the external environment occurs. That happens all the time, right? External variables are always changing, right? So the my economic situation could be changing, so you might want to adjust the product in that way, right? So you might want to let's say the people are spending more money, let's say the government is distributing more money, people will have more money in their hands, right? So they want to spend it. So what would you do? You would basically have a chance of increasing the prices maybe, right? So in that circumstance you can do so, right? So if you are so these kind of environmental variables, they change all the time, right? So based on that you can change your assumptions, right? That will influence what? Your investment requirement and everything, right? Your whole assumption changes, right? So yeah, that will have a lot of impact on any of your decision, right? So what's the marking structure? Where is the marking structure? Is it not given? Seems like it's not. Okay, can't seem to find it, but yeah, okay, anyways, right? So it was a very good fun chapter to study. So if you don't understand anything regarding how this computation happened right over here, regarding this, how we got this 897, right? So we are just working backwards on that. And if you don't understand this part, or even if you don't understand what I told over here, return in excess of the required rate of return, right? The discount rate, right? If you didn't understand that, do comment down below. I'll definitely be happy to answer it for you. Thank you. Do share, like, and subscribe this video, and take care. Bye bye.